Hi, thanks for stopping by. It's December 16th, Tuesday, and let's get going. This is a quick review. May not be quick, but it's attempted to be quick about a piece of tech we built for the NFL game schedule. And what it does is serve up calendar invites out of a picker. And that picker, in this case here, is a custom built site by Arnie, our co-founder. And that custom built site is a mini app that displays the NFL game. So let's get into how the game data got onto the NFL custom built site and for demo purposes. And that custom site is right here. And when I click this URL, and this URL here is pulling data out of the Calendar Invite server, which we own and built. And you can kind of see if you click a button, you'll get game details. And if someone like me puts in my email address, hits one button, I am sent a calendar invite just like that. So I'm going to put this away and get into the particular slideware to keep this party rolling. So that said, Mandy is the organizer. She uses her calendar client. It's a Google Calendar client. She sends the game data to create at calendarsnack.com. That game data is ingested into a REST endpoint. That REST endpoint is an email box that takes on the name of create at calendarsnack.com. This email box can be anything you want it if you're a domain owner. In our case here, we just set this up as create at calendarsnack.com. So the API endpoint is an endpoint for data ingestion. Essentially, it's ingested, it's ETL'd, and stored for further use. And the further use / future use is our REST endpoint for sending calendar invites, which we'll get into. Mandy is the organizer and reviews all the game data that she sent to the calendar invite server in the console. She can edit it with her calendar client and says to update the data in the calendar invite server. So one of the first principles is using the calendar client itself from an organizer as a create, read, update, and delete engine or CRUD engine, using the API we just spoke about, or I just spoke about, as an API endpoint to ingest ETL and store the calendar invite data from an organizer. In this case here, the 270 games are stored under Mandy the organizer's database in AWS. And then those APIs are displayed in the calendar invite server console for her. And then in addition, she's using a third piece of technology in this demo, which is a custom site, custom app built by Arnie, my co-founder. And that is a sports landings page. That sports landing page app is shared with customers. The customers insert their email address and select a game and click one button like I just did to get a calendar invite. And then those RSVPs are tracked in the calendar invite server console, in this case here, Mandy's calendar invite console. So the recap, the first slide is she's using three pieces of tech. She's using her calendar client. She's using the calendar invite server console served up by the Calendar Snack app. And then the console itself is communicating with the APIs of the calendar invite server to serve out the data of the 270 games for the custom built demo site for Mandy. So as we get into it, I spoke about Arnie. Arnie built this gorgeous site using a set of our APIs for the calendar invite server. He talks about it at length. If you go to NFL 2025.31 events, I'll go ahead and go into it real quick again. It's going to serve up the custom app landing page. And under the custom app landing page, you can see as I scoot around the interface, the data changes. If you wanted the New England Patriots game schedule, just click one button and go back. Or if I went in the Cleveland Browns, if I went back, you'd see all the data there. And then future games here, you're able to go to game details and then put in an email address like I just did and get one click calendar invite sent, which is tracked by someone like Mandy. It's super cool. Now, how Arnie built it is super cool in that all the critical information, how it's built, is right here. You can go up and down in the interface, north and south, east and west, and kind of learn about how he built it under first principles of data. and then using our APIs in which we built in the calendar invite server. So I'm going to put that away, and I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint, which is right here, and we'll keep moving. So the concept is Mandy had this built by Arnie. Mandy shares this game data in the calendar invite server to this particular site using an API key, set of API keys to serve it up. She shares the sports landing page with Greg. He selects the games he wants to go to by reviewing the game schedule. He reviews the game schedule. He selects these 4 games, and then he puts his email address in over here, clicks one button to get the invite, and he has sent the particular games right here. Now, these particular games show up in his calendar mailbox. If you think about it, they hit the email box and then they're served up in the Google Calendar client themselves. So go to email first. In the email, he's able to toggle, say yes, no, or maybe to these events, and then Mandy collects the RSVP data, can update appropriately any game information onto Greg's calendar. Now, the in-between area is really an area where I just do a quick highlight, and that is the outbound calendar invite server sending processor. So it's a mouthful, but the outbound processor itself is a set of functions or workflows specific to the engineering task force for the internet, or IETF, Internet Engineering Task Force for calendar invites. So this spec we've built toward keeps us compliant across all calendar clients across the world, across all languages and time zones, and keeps us compliant and ready any language or anybody that receives a calendar invite in a different particular continent, if you will. The encoding and embedding of the calendar clients are compliant using our tech stack. So that outbound processor sends, tracks, updates, and deletes calendar invites by taking the commands from the calendar client of the organizer, making it a powerful tool. So in this case here, Mandy sent the data here to the calendar invite server itself. The outbound processor was called by someone like Greg or Zach in this case here, and Greg or Zach would get a calendar invite because the REST API is called. It's sending out a reassembled calendar invite per the IETF compliant spec, and the calendar invite goes out, and then the calendar invite spec makes us recall data from the calendar client itself. And what we've done is built a independent API REST point that gathers that data and displays it in Mandy's dashboard. So the data goes out via the outbound processor, and then we request the calendar receipts for the independent calendar UIDs for those games. So you can see them there. And what Mandy does is log in the calendar invite console to see the reports around the game and who has signed up. So this is kind of like a waterfall of Mandy logs into the calendar invite server console. The console is serving up the data in an app that Arnie built called the Calendar Invite or Calendar Snack app. That app is displaying the organizer control panel. Organizer control panel has all Mandy's calendar invite data she's sent out over the years. And then in particular, she drills into 12/21, which are 14 NFL games. Those 14 NFL games in particular, she drills into one for the New York Giants versus the Minnesota Vikings. And I'm showing a detailed display of the display APIs from the calendar invite server for the control panel, event snapshot, event information, event summary, then the RSV report here. And as I get into it, what Greg sees in his calendar invite for Mandy is looks like this prior to Mandy updating it with a promotional offer. So I got the 4 calendar invites here by putting my email address in, clicking one button, getting the calendar invites. But in particular, we're going to carve out this one and highlight for a promotional update, which Mandy's going to do, and you're going to see what Greg sees. So Mandy's going to pick out the New York Giants versus the Minnesota Vikings. This is what Greg is seeing in his email reader and onto his calendar client on Google. So what Mandy does is she goes in and edits, updates, and saves with the new promotional offer in her calendar. This is Mandy's calendar client event ID. It is registered in the inbound processor behind the create at calendarsnack.com mailbox. And essentially this UID has been already registered and we're tracking this UID. So anytime she updates anything on a personal calendar as an organizer to the calendar invite server process, we are tracking anything and can update it on demand. So she can update the calendar invite data just by resending the calendar invite event back at any time that UID is alive. And in this case here, she's done that by inserting in stop by our surprise vendor booth 983 at the NFL game and get a free $125 value jersey. So she resends it back to the calendar invite inbound processor by using the crate@calendarsnack.com email address. And this is what Greg sees. Greg sees the updated calendar invite is sent by the outbound processor. The outbound processor is a REST API, and he responds back maybe, which is sent back to the REST API for data storage and analytics for all RSVP collected information from the calendar clients. Mandy is tracking the status in the calendar invite server console once the offer has been updated and has been resent to her customers. Greg was one of them. And she is tracking basically anyone from the previous that responded yes or maybe is getting the updated calendar client information, which is right here. This stop by this surprise booth that she inserted into her calendar client back here. Greg gets it, and then she's tracking it here in the console. Now, in the console, the total number of invites to this particular game is highlighted here, how many responses for the RSVPs and what the response rate is, and then how many campaigns she has updated here. So in this case here, she's updated this campaign just once. So this is a kind of a recap. This is a deeper dive into how the data is collected, which I showed you in the previous slide. Every time a calendar invite is sent out by our REST API, a calendar receipt is requested and sent back to the REST API gateway, and then the calendar invite analytics are done and stored in the database for the API itself to display that information in the console for the organizer for someone like Mandy. That's it. Thanks for stopping by and long hauling it with me here on December 16th, 2025 on how the calendar invite server works for NFL game information here, which Arnie, my co-founder, built and Mandy, the organizer, is using. Thanks again.